I don't know about you guys, but my little Mark 18 here, I know I'm effective with. I've hit targets out to 500 yards, definitely, totally without a lie, and I heard the ting. So that means the target was down, right? Right? Let's talk about the effectiveness of 5.56 and at what point is it no longer effective. Also, 20% increase in range. Welcome back, everybody. Clint here today with Classic Firearms, here to talk about 5.56. In a previous video, we were talking about the NGSW. I point at this because this is our NGSW on a budget giveaway, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this video. I mentioned a caliber 277 Valkyrie that doesn't exist because I got different stuff in my head going whenever my mouth is talking. And sorry, I meant 277 Fury for the MCX Spear that was civilian available. But today we're here to talk about 5.56 and the cartridge that might not, well, be around much longer for the United States Army. I don't know how true that is, though, simply because, well, 5.56 is a NATO cartridge, and it is one that has been used throughout NATO, which has, if you don't know, a lot of countries in it. And I just don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. But at what point does the 5.56 projectile, does that bullet, start to really lose its effectiveness, right? And so what is effectiveness, right? Well, the DoD states that the maximum effective range is the maximum distance at which a weapon may be expected to be accurate and achieve the desired effect. What is the desired effect, you say? Well, it depends on the weapon system that you're going to be utilizing. For instance, if it's a M16 with a 5.56 M855 round, which is the 62 grain projectile full metal jacket green tip that we all know and love with the steel penetrator, not armor piercing, well, its desired effect is to incapacitate an enemy combatant. If you're talking about a Tomahawk warhead, its desired effect is to absolutely neutralize everything within its vicinity. So you're going to talk about, it's going to mean different things for different types of weapon systems, put it that way, right? So let's go ahead and break this down really quick. We're going to be primarily talking about M193, the 55 grain projectile, and the M855, the 62 grain projectile, as it stands as far as military applications. And of course, to us civilians out here, well, to y'all civilians out here, that just simply want the information or want to know what their rifle is capable of. We're going to be talking a lot of the ballistics out of a 14.5-inch barrel and a 20-inch barrel, because the 20-inch barrel is what the M16 is, and the 14.5 is what the M4 is that you see right here. So let's go ahead and talk about it really quick. What makes the 5.56 projectile so effective? Velocity. What don't you get as much of in a shorter barrel? Velocity. So as you can imagine, the 14.5-inch barrel isn't going to quite get you the desired effect that you want at greater distances like a 20-inch barrel or even an 18-inch barrel will. Funny story, by the way, since we're talking about the M4 and just this topic in general, when I was going through my combat training in the Marines, I'll never forget that I had a combat instructor that seemed very into himself, that tried to explain to the class that the 249 saw would actually be, how do I say this? The 249 saw, this little guy, semi-auto version, that 5.56 cartridges that will actually be more lethal out of this than out of the M4. And what he was saying wasn't exactly incorrect, because what he was referring to was the full-size 249 with the 18-inch barrel. At that point in time, I didn't really know much of a difference. This was also over 10 years ago, and I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's a light machine gun, I don't know. And then I started understanding later in life, not much later, but a little bit later, that barrel length has a lot to do with that. We actually covered an entire barrel velocity video, or a barrel length muzzle velocity video. But the part that I thought was kind of funny was that the reason he said that the 5.56 cartridge is more lethal out of the 249 saw was because the primer was getting struck harder. and therefore it had more energy being thrown into the cartridge to push the projectile out the barrel harder. Point of the story is, just because somebody served in the military doesn't mean they're always absolutely right or know what the hell they're talking about. Anyway, let's get down into this. What's the effective range of the 5.56 projectile, M193 M855? I did a little bit of digging, and according to the FBI states that the striking energy of just under 60 foot-pounds of energy is the minimum to cause a disabling wound. According to the NRA and other general consensuses that I have found, is that anywhere between 220 to about 300 foot-pounds of energy is what is going to be needed for the most effective self-defense, the minimum, I should say, the minimum energy transferred to a target in a self-defense situation. Average that out, it's about 260 foot-pounds. Okay, cool. So at what point do we achieve that 260 foot-pounds downrange? And I've got that all right here. So the M193 at 532 yards out of a 55, this is again 55 grain projectile out of a 20-inch barrel. So we can go ahead and just move this to the side, less any confusion. The M193 out of a 20-inch barrel at 532 yards is where you start to lose, or is where you hit that 260 foot-pounds of energy. Anything beyond that, it's not really considered at that point in time to be effective in a self-defense situation, but according to that FBI statistic, it still has the capability of causing a disabling wound. Interesting. Also, too, another interesting thing is if you look up, like, with the type of force that some boxers have been able to hit somebody, I mean, my goodness. The energy transfer there has been sometimes greater than almost 1,000 foot-pounds, unless I completely misread that. And if I did, please let me know down in the comment section below, because that was something that blew my mind. But you also have gloves on, and this is just a tiny metal object entering your body on soft tissue, so there's that, right? Okay, what about the M855? This was something that I thought was kind of interesting, because I thought these numbers would be a little bit larger. I thought there would be a greater difference between the two, but no. This one here at 260 foot-pounds is 635 yards. 635 yards. That's still a decent amount of difference, but what about 1,000 yards? In a lot of states, or sorry, 1,000 foot-pounds of energy, a lot of states actually won't allow you to legally hunt with the 5.56 cartridge or 223 Remington cartridge, because it doesn't generate the type of lethality that they deem humane for incapacitating a game, right? So, okay, cool. So when is that 1,000 foot-pounds of energy achieved? The M193, 96 yards. 96 yards. After that, it actually starts to lose momentum. So within 100 yards, you're good. Outside of that, your 1,000 foot-pounds of energy is actually lost, which I thought, again, was very interesting. And here's where I thought the differences would have been a lot greater. Not so much. Within 100 yards, 99 yards for the M855 62 grain projectile is when it achieves that 1,000 foot-pounds of energy. After that, it starts to degrade. So of course, the heavier the projectile, it seems like can keep that momentum a little bit longer. Even though the bullet might be traveling a little bit faster, it doesn't have the mass behind it to actually inflict any type of casualty, which again, just kind of like blows my mind. So all of that is very interesting, I think. And let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, because we haven't even gotten down into the nitty-gritty of the type of projectile that you're using as well. And that is where it gets weird. Because, for instance, you have, if we're going to get really nerdy here, let's go ahead and do it. What about the ballistic coefficient of the projectiles being utilized? Everything that I talked about today, we're talking M193, which has the standard ballistic coefficient, according to the United States Army, of 0.243. What that means simply is that what a ballistic coefficient, let me explain what I've got here written down in my notes. It's an objective measure of an object's ability to overcome air resistance in flight. A bullet with a higher ballistic coefficient generates less in-flight drag. In other words, it's more aerodynamic, to put it quite simply, and I hope that makes sense to a lot of you guys out there. So if you have a projectile that has a higher ballistic coefficient, you're going to notice that it's going to actually have better flight time. It's not going to degrade as much in trajectory. And on top of that, it's going to be hitting your target with a little bit more energy down the road, downrange, I should say. So all of that to keep in mind. And then if you want to go even more nerdy, there's different types of projectiles. G1, G7 are the most common. G1 being just like your standard projectile, right? You got a cone, or you got the tip of the bullet, and then just a flat base, right? Your G7 is that, you know, boat tail design, a little bit longer, a little bit skinnier, typically also too a little bit more accurate, and also too, the G7, extremely low drag, just to take note of, all right? So with all that being said, I hope a lot of this information that I've provided you today makes sense. I hope if you're trying to really get into the nitty-gritty of what the absolute effective range of your defensive firearm might be in types of situation. You might be able to hit a target 1.5 miles away with your 5.56 gun, and that's fantastic and all. You might be shooting like this, but you might get there. But what effect will it have on the target if it's even hit? So it's not going to be great. The 5.56 cartridge just wasn't designed for that type of distance. Now, a little bit closer distance, I'm saying within 500 yards, obviously it's a detrimental round. Once it makes impact into soft tissue, if it doesn't fragment, the possibility of it starting to yaw and start tumbling and things along those lines, obviously detrimental. If it's got the velocity it needs, especially out of a 20-inch barrel, and it does start to fragment, you can imagine just how devastating that would be on a target, to say. All right, so again, keep all of that in mind. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Are you gonna go out and throw away your 10.3 Mark 18 because you're just not achieving those velocities? No, I'm not. Absolutely not. I'm just gonna keep the silencer on it and use it for my home defense gun still. I'm not mad about it. But anyway, again, I wanna hear from you guys, and all of this talk, of course, is about the Next Gen Squad Weapon Program, how the United States Army has awarded SIG and Vortex the new contracts for new optics and also new guns.